Thanks so much for tuning in. This will be the May 2026 both council briefing and regular meeting update. I just finished recording this entire video and my computer lost it, so my voice is a little tired. I do apologize. Um, I think what I'm going to do is something a little different. As I recorded the last one, I was thinking oftentimes some of the most important content of the meeting is at the end, and so I'm going to take things a little bit out of order, and I'm going to start with the ordinances for final adoption and put those up front, and then I'll go through the rest after. So, looking at the ordinance for final adoption, there were two, and I'll tell you as we start that both were tabled. The first one we talked about pretty extensively, but we got some information tonight that I was not previously aware of. And so this ordinance dealt with land clearing, in my opinion, primarily land clearing in regard to burning and penalties that are associated with that. And we're not changing the effect of any law here, meaning that burning, open burning, was previously not allowed and is certainly still not allowed inside the city limits of Carencro. The purpose of this, moving it from chapter 26 of our ordinance to where it's at, chapter 2, where we're adding it to chapter 22, is to address a specific problem of open burning in regards to land clearing. And so it was to first clarify that even in a land clearing activity, you cannot open burn, and to increase the penalties for that. What was happening is contractors or large landowners were clearing portions of land and burning it. Fire department would spend a lot of time and energy and resources, and the penalty was $100 or $300, and so the landowner or the contractor would just pay it. It wasn't enough to deter them, and so we're going to increase the penalties, and we're going to I'm going to go back and read to make sure I understood this correctly tonight because I don't remember seeing it. But the penalties may include up to having your permit, building permit, or land clearing permit removed. Um, there were two essential concerns that I heard tonight from the public that I think need to be addressed. The first one, and the reason it was ultimately tabled, was it was not advertised properly, meaning that the ordinance that was listed or displayed to the public was only the cover sheet, kind of the part that describes why the ordinance is being implemented and not the ordinance itself. And this means that the public did not have ample time to review it. So we will have to start the process over. This, from what I can tell, is simply an oversight. The second thing that's interesting is that there was a concern that this took some of the authority from the fire chief and placed it in an administrative capacity. And the concern with this is that fire protection should always be at the discretion of the fire chief, just like you wouldn't take some crime fighting ability from the police chief and give it to the administration. What I can tell you is that Mayor Clavier does not have that intention in talking to her. In fact, she directed Desire Line, who's writing this code, to go back and ensure that was not happening. And so that's kind of the first part of it. The other thing that I will say about this is we do sometimes put things in multiple codes. Sometimes we take them out of multiple codes and put them together. But what's important is that things are addressed where they need to be addressed. And so for land clearing and that sort of thing, it's important that we are putting the intent of the ordinance where it belongs, and in this case, in land clearing. And I think interestingly, I asked some questions of Fire Chief David Mouton because I discussed this with him a few months ago when this first came about. And he was in favor of it as best I could tell. I don't want to put words in his mouth. And he made some adjustments to it before it got to the council in regard to the things I just discussed. So I'll look back into it and make sure it doesn't take any of his authority away, because I wouldn't be in favor of that. The other thing is, you may ask, well, Jordan, how did you not know you get the packet? How did you not realize this was not properly advertised? To give you an idea of how a lot of this works, what happens is we get our packets, but oftentimes there are supplemental material that we may get before, and Desire Line does a really good job of sending us the proposed ordinance in a format that to me is much easier to read. And so it's essentially the original ordinance, and it'll have strike throughs on what's being taken out, and it'll have, like in green, the words that are being added or sections being added. And obviously, that's much easier to tell what you're changing. You don't have to go back and forth between two documents. And so when I see these ordinances, I pull that document that shows what's being added and removed, and I don't necessarily look at what's in the packet in regard to that. And so that's how I missed it. And, Mr. Don Chauvet came up and pointed that out to us. So we tabled it, but it's really ultimately good because as Mayor Clavier instructed Desire-Line, kind of go back and look at it and be sure we're not taking the authority from the fire chief. And I will look at it again to make sure we're not unnecessarily duplicating this same thing in two ordinances. So that one was tabled. The second one that was tabled was the one that I suspected was going to bring the most discussion. It's had a lot of discussion in the public. There have been Facebook posts about it. The administration has worked extensively with Desire-Line, who's building this one as well. And so, this deals with occupational license tax. To give those people who may not really know occupational license taxes a broad overview, essentially what they are is they're a business tax, a tax on businesses that is permitted in Louisiana state statute. And it's a tax that can be approved or authorized by the governing body. So the city council can approve this tax. And this has been in the city of Scarecrow forever. I mean, it's been, people have needed an occupational license tax or an occupational license, as we call it here, and I'll call it going forward, forever and ever. And really, in my opinion, there's not a significant change in what this amendment does. That was kind of the first thing that I had interpreted on Facebook. And the way the current ordinance reads is that basically anybody conducting any business in the city of Scarecrow is subject to requiring an occupational license. This ordinance says the same thing. The thing that it does change is it does bring us up to speed. So when the state law was written and our initial code was written, Uber and DoorDash and 1-800-Flowers.com weren't a thing, Walmart delivery, whatever. Well, they are now. And what you end up having is unfair playing field. Certainly, not having an occupational license is not what's causing the death of main streets and the degradation of mom and pops, but it's this type of thing, this type of business environment of unfair playing fields that is hurting them. And it's because the codes and state laws have not kept up with the business environment that we have. I'll give you an example that I gave tonight. Bros Flower Shop is a great local business that we have in Scarecrow, pays an occupational license tax, or they have an occupational license. Well, 1-800-Flowers.com doesn't have an occupational license. And not only that, 1-800-Flowers, at least not that long ago, wasn't paying sales tax either. The state's trying to catch up with that, and they're not quite there, but they're getting closer. And so your local mom and pops like Bros Flower Shop is at an unfair advantage to online retailers. So what we're trying to do is come up to the times and ensure that if you're doing business here, whether you're an Uber or a DoorDash or 1-800-Flowers, and I'm using those obviously just as an example, there are countless of these businesses. Amazon, if you're getting your packages shipped to you, we want to ensure that we are at least giving a fair advantage, a fair playing field to the people that are here. So some key terms that we debated tonight are fixed location and gross receipts. And those are kind of hot topics that we discussed. And traditionally, gross receipts were how you calculate an occupational license. And that's whether you're Walmart or Lowe's or a gas station or a psychiatrist or a flower shop or fast food, whatever. And it's all kind of a little different. There's these big charts that the state puts out, and you find the business type, and then based off of that business type, you figure how much tax needs to be paid. Most of them have a cap. The most common is 1/10 of 1% of the gross sales. But when you look at, again, 1-800-Flowers.com, gross receipts doesn't apply. First of all, we don't have the authority in the city of Scarecrow to tax somebody in Arkansas or California. So when we talk about gross receipts, it has to be gross receipts, in my opinion, and this was debated tonight, gross receipts inside the municipality, inside of character. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is fixed location. And so there has been some case law. Muir versus Lake Charles went to the Supreme Court in the late 1980s. And it said that you need to have a fixed location. You need to be domiciled or have a business presence. Those are my terms, by the way. I don't know what the case law said in terms of exactly how they worded it. But essentially, that was that finding. That was discussed at the meeting. Now, I've been made aware since then there's a much more recent precedent by the Supreme Court, South Dakota versus Wayfair, that said no, the business environment has certainly changed, and you have the authority to tax somebody who is doing business in your municipality, even if they don't have a brick and mortar or a fixed location. So I will tell you that I need to go back and read up on those legal precedents to figure that out. But that was the main portion of what was debated tonight on what is the intent. Yeah. And then if you look at it from the other side, Bros Flower Shop, I use it just because it's an easy example. They certainly now as well are selling in other municipalities. And so do we use their gross receipts? I don't think that's fair, because I can see a time in the future where other municipalities will pass something similar and Bros will need an occupational license there perhaps. We don't want to double tax them. They're our business. We want to protect them. So I think it's important, and the amended ordinance that we were looking at tonight, used the term gross receipts multiple times. And so we need to make sure, in my opinion, that it's gross receipts within our municipality. That's the first thing. And then the other thing is we need to be sure that we're on solid legal ground in terms of fixed location versus electronic or some other means. Whether or not you have a brick and mortar here, I do think to create a level playing field, we need to be able to tax those people. So more to come. Desire is going to go back and kind of rework it. One of the big things that sparked this tonight was there's a section in the amended ordinance that Desire presented that references a section of state code that deals with sales tax, which is very, very different than business tax or occupational license tax. It seemed to me and to Councilwoman Danielle Caprito, who did an excellent job kind of researching this, to overly broaden our ability to require occupational licenses. So we're going to look more into that. They're going to look more into that. We'll come back. This is one of those things you really want to get right. You can always amend it, but when it comes to taxes and taxing people, it's important to not miss it. So we tabled both of our ordinances for final adoption. I think we had excellent discussion from the public and the council, and we'll see what happens. Going all the way back up to the top, we started with some announcements. First one was LDH water grade. So Louisiana Department of Health grades every water system, private, public, otherwise. We were a letter grade A. And so really, really proud of the public works team, the administrative staff that support them and help with reports and those kind of things. We're continuously upgrading our system. And so really proud of what we've done. The next thing I'm really excited about is a new media system inside the council chambers. Many of you watch the meetings online. And for those of you who do, you know that we've been having a lot of IT type problems. The sound doesn't work, the video doesn't work, it cuts off halfway through. It was outdated technology, and we've got new technology. So the reports I got from tonight, first night using it, was that the sound quality was much, much better. And so I'm hopeful. We're still working out the kinks. As part of this is a voting system. So rather than the council just saying yay or nay, we actually are pressing buttons to vote, which shows up on the screens, and so people can see in real time how we're voting. And so again, we're still working out the tweaks of that whole system and the cameras and such. So I think it'll get better over time, but really, really good. Next item we talked about in announcements was Camp Atterjay barbecue sale. So for those of you who don't know, the previous Scarecrow Camp, which has happened for decades at Carencro Middle in the summer. It's a camp that I went to in the late 90s and early 2000s, was renamed this year, and I'm really happy we did. Camp Outer J, after Miss Outer J. Ozine, who passed away recently. She was there back when I went there in the 90s and early 2000s. It was a staple of that program. Her family, in honor of her legacy, wants to give back, and so they're going to have a barbecue sale. It'll be pork steak sandwiches, a drink and a chips for $12. That'll be at the pavilion behind Carencro City Hall. Please support that. Check it out on Facebook. If you want some tickets, let me know. I'll get you in touch. But those proceeds are going to go back to support the camp and the campers there. So I think it's a great endeavor. The Carencro Sports Complex summer program, summer camp, still has openings, which is a little unusual. You know, that camp typically fills up very, very quickly, but there are still some spots. See Facebook if you're interested. This Sunday, there will be a Memorial Day event held downtown near the Veterans Memorial at 11:30 this coming Sunday, so please attend that if you're able. And then the Independence Day celebration will be Saturday, June 27th at Pelican Park at the McRD stage. Doors open at 7, band starts at 8, fireworks at 10. Free event as always, so please bring your family and your lawn chairs and your blankets and come out and enjoy some good music and some fireworks. We approved the financial reports and the regular meeting minutes. The financial reports continue to trend in the right direction. To me, it's a slow and healthy growth. We're not staying flat or losing money, and we're not exponentially growing, which I think is not great either. We need to have slow, steady growth, which is what I see in the sales tax reports. We then heard from department heads and consultants. Overall, really good reports, I thought. Chief David Anderson did speak about the Badges of Trust program. This is a summer program. Again, see their Facebook, call the Carencro Police Department or go by to fill out an application. Please don't quote me, but I believe he said this is ages 8 to 16 or maybe 12 to 16. But if you call the police department, they can give you some more information. I know it's been very successful, and the kids that have gone to that program have enjoyed it tremendously. We did hear some updates from 3 new people: Utility Supervisor Maureen Guidry, Planning Department Tammy Robertson, and the Assistant to the Mayor, Ms. Candace Tompkins, who all gave excellent reports. A lot of questions were asked of them. It was nice to hear some updates from them and the things that are going on. We got an update from Mr. Andy Seller with Fence-to-Maker, and I, of course, took this opportunity to ask about Cody Construction. As you remember, this is a company that did some public works projects in the city of Carencro and was well outside of their contracted time and entered into liquidated damages. The number that was presented to us tonight was $236,000. That is owed. Now, it's a little complicated because not all of those dollars are owed to us. Some of those are liens or third-party contractors that we paid and those kind of things. But Cody Construction remains unresponsive to us in terms of letters we've sent and such. But our attorney, Mr. Chris Villamoret, has been speaking with their counsel, the counsel of the bonding company, who is ultimately fiscally responsible. And so they're working out what is actually owed and to whom and how is it going to get paid. And so I'm glad to hear that is happening. I've been very clear at every meeting that I can that the money that is owed to the people of Carencro should be paid. These things I imagine are going to go through some sort of litigation or arbitration or something. And I recognize we may not end up getting every penny owed to us because we're dealing with a bonding company, but we should fight for every penny, and that's my goal. We got some good updates from Mr. Lynn Guidry. This week, they'll have a pre-bid meeting for the City Hall renovations. We got some excellent updates about the Carencro Police Department pond. There have been a few problems. The main one is that the fountains in the pond are not working. And so it's looking like it's going to be about $10,000 or $15,000 to get those up and working. There's a couple of options they're looking at. And then there was a problem with the pond level being too low, and they think they've solved that as well. So good news there. Next, we move to resolutions. All of them passed unanimously other than the first one, which was tabled. And the first one was a Desire Line contract to update the code in the nuisance code. Again, Councilwoman Danielle Caprino did lots of work discussing extensively with Desire Line. Why are we doing this? How are we doing it? Why did this come about? She talked to administrative staff at City Hall, and this was going to be a $40,000 line item to update this code. And I believe, and Danielle believes, that she has worked out that we won't need this done, that we'll be able to work within the current code after clarifying many things with many people. So I think over the course of the next month, Mayor Charlotte Clavier and Councilwoman Danielle Caprino, as well as Desire Line, are going to sit down and figure it out. But I'm thinking that we will be able to stick with the code we have and not need Desire Line to amend anything. So we'll see what happens. The next resolution was one that I was really on the fence about going to the meeting. It's blacktopping Gloria Switch from Moss Street to University. Roughly 50% is ours, 50% is LCG. And the problem that I had with it is that it's a DOTD road. So the state of Louisiana is ultimately responsible for the maintenance and repair of that road. The problem is that they have it on a list that needs to be done, but there's no time frame, there's no budget or financing, and no real plan to get that done. And we have an opportunity through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. They have $2 million available, probably in the 2028 or 2029 fiscal year, to get this done. That would mean it would be about a $1.3 million local match. Again, 50-50, $600,000 or $700,000 would be ours, $600,000 or $700,000 would be LCG's. So the question essentially to me, to the council, was, do we want to spend roughly $600,000 of our citizens' money while we have that matching fund from the MPO? For those of you who don't know, the MPO is a regional organization. They have them throughout the state, and they are used to try to bring resources together. The state and federal systems really want to know that there's going to be a regional impact, or they prefer a regional impact. You really can see this better in drainage. So if Carencro redigs a canal, but Lafayette doesn't do anything, well, we really haven't done much. And so the MPO looks for these bigger projects to put together, bringing in multiple municipalities or governing authorities to try to leverage those funds with the state and federal government. So this is one of those, the council, whenever this comes up, will have the ability to vote to approve the funds or not. Danielle Caprino, again, I feel like Danielle Caprino was a VIP tonight, made an amendment that this resolution would be contingent upon LCG. And my concern was that if LCG did not approve this, we were going to get stuck with the whole 1.3 billion. But I think doing it this way gives us some ability to ensure that everybody has skin in the game. So ultimately, I voted yes, and this passed unanimously. The next one was Prejean Road sidewalks. This is a really, really great project. There is some federal money here. There's some state money here. A lot of foot traffic on Prejean Road, particularly from University to just past Pelican Park. And then with the new gas station coming up on the corner of Arsenault and University, there's going to be even more foot traffic there. There already have been some pedestrian crashes there. And so this is a great time to do that project. The next one is the Safe Streets for All. This is a very long-term type project. This is federal dollars, and this was essentially the council voting that, yes, we're in favor, we want to move forward. So this would take the dog legs out of Gloria Switch. If you're coming from I-49 down Gloria Switch toward University, when it makes the first dog leg to the right, the rough plan is that the road would continue and make a soft, gentle curve to the right back to Walter. Likely, there would be a roundabout there. Again, the plans are not finalized. Property acquisition hasn't happened. There's not a lot of engineering done. But we've started the process to try to get these federal funds through a program called Safe Streets for All. I did get a question about that roundabout. And, I'll spend a lot of time thinking about it. There are some other longer term models that I've seen. Again, will they happen? Who knows? They're really vision type things. But it would take that road, Gloria Switch, or it would have some other name, down Walter, to Arsenault, probably around about there, to Tima, probably around about there at Tima and St. Anne, and then a roundabout at Tima at Veterans. And the thought is it would be a major thoroughfare through the city of Carencro from the Gloria Switch exit to Veterans with no stop signs or red lights. There'd be 3 or 4 roundabouts, but so it's really part of a bigger vision. You know, I think if you think of that one roundabout isolated, maybe it doesn't make as much sense. But when you think about that full picture, it kind of starts to make a little more sense. So we'll see how that goes over time, but we did grant initial approval to move forward there. The next one was another one that really gave me a lot of heartburn, but I don't see another way around it. It was a $455,000 budget amendment for a sewer project. On College Road, there's about 400 feet of sewer that needs to be redone. Long story short, there was a terrible incident recently where sewer backed up into 6 or 8 homes. And so there was literally raw sewage all over walls and floors of people's houses. From what I can understand from Buster Broussard, who's the superintendent of that department, the pipe has probably been bad for a long time. In fact, the angle that it should flow is inverted. It's backwards. And also the pipe has sags in it. And so what's happening is the sewage is sitting in those sags. Why did this happen now? He really is not sure. He suspects maybe people that are living there may be using it more. Maybe people are putting more grease into the lines, which makes me stop to make a plea. Please do not put grease in your sewer lines. Don't put things in the toilets that don't belong. It costs us a lot of time and money to go clear those lines. But if you've kind of done some rough math in your head, it's about $1,000 a foot to do this project, which is just unbelievable to me. But that $1,000 a foot is not just in getting pipe in the ground. There's 5 or 8 driveways that are going to have to be torn up, put back in. All of those taps for those houses are going to have to be redone. Limestone is going to have to be put into the hole to make sure that the angle of drainage is correct, which is why we can't bore it. And so, I think it's a lot of money for a few houses, but if it was your house that had sewage backing up into it, you'd be beating the doors down at City Hall to get it done. And it's our sewer line. We have a responsibility to fix it. So it did pass. The last resolution was to grant Vista Maker the contract to do the next phase of the water rehab. They've done all the other ones. They've done a good job. That was approved. We had one introductory ordinance. I'll be really brief on it. Essentially, it was to remove a $25 fee that was included in the backflow preventer ordinance. That $25 never should have been there. It's supposed to be a pass-on cost. If you have a backflow preventer, you know about this. And if you are not sure, then you don't have a backflow preventer because you would know. But basically, a plumber has to go out to those backflow preventers every year and inspect them. Previously, the city of Carencro is required by state law to keep all of those certificates on file and pass them on to the state. So the staff was doing an extraordinary amount of work, calling people, begging them, sending letters to try to get these certificates in and get people to get them inspected. So what we decided to do was we were going to do all the inspections with one plumber, bid it out, and bill the customers. It'd be easier on paperwork and ultimately cheaper, which proved to be true this year. My understanding is $100 to $150 was the going rate for a plumber to go out and inspect it. Because we're doing it in bulk, we're getting a much cheaper price. And I believe it was around $70 this year, plus a $10 administrative fee for us to get the plumber lined up, collect the documents, all those things. So it ended up being cheaper. But what happened, the change is, for whatever reason, what the ordinance said was that we were going to charge customers $25 for the inspection, when in fact, we're just going to charge them whatever it costs that year. That price is going to change year to year. We'll bid it out. We'll try to get the best price we can. So we just took that $25 out. That is the end of it. Thank you for bearing with me, and I hope you have a good week.